I would say most of the political assassinations in Kenya, especially those that happened from independent time to the turn of the century, I did investigation. I came up with a convincing story that makes it possible that what I believe in most likely is what happened. But there are a few, less than 5, which I was unable to completely come up with a plausible explanation. One of them is on Ronald Gideon Ngala. But for you to understand it was a political assassination, just don't look at somebody dying. Look at who he was. Even today, go to report a burglary has happened to your house. You'll see police wanasema sijui mafuta hakuna. Hakuna nani yako crime standby sijui nini. But let a burglary happen in a prominent person's place. 5 minutes there, Land Cruiser imefika and everybody's there. But when you find kale kajama useless kwa village yako, kanakufa, police swing into action. And then a prominent person anakufa and the police are unable, and those days of Kanu mostly unwilling, to answer the murder, then know it is political assassination. Ronald Ngala was one of the very educated people at that time. He went to Makerere, and for the people of that time, going to Makerere was a lot. But and again, he was among the people who went to Lancaster, and is somebody who was a freedom fighter. But Ronald Ngala, very little is known about Ronald Ngala before independence. Let us start from independence. When Kenya became independent, from day one, Ronald Ngala was convinced that we have a federal system of government, Majimbo. And he's the one who influenced Kadu to fight for Majimbo. When I started this channel, among the first few tapes are tapes where I've explained various types of governments. When you find your time and you have the bundles, kindly watch and see how different governments are formed. The type of the government that Ronald Ngala wanted, if I can explain maybe the Swiss type of government, Switzerland. This is where we have a federal government and we have regional governments. During those days, regional governments were along the provinces. So we had each province, Rift Valley had its own parliament, Western, Nyanza, Central, Coast, each province had its own parliament and it had its own provincial president. Now, if you go to Switzerland, today we have county governments where you find that the governor is called His Excellency. So what Ngala wanted was the Swiss type of government where the national government or the federal government is weaker than the provincial government. Actually, it is just coordinating. Today, you find that although the Constitution today says that the two levels of government are independent and interdependent. But the Swiss type of government has it that the federal government is very... actually, you'd even want to fight to be a regional president. That is what Ngala wanted. All the majimbos, all the regions to be so powerful that the national government... And to me, and quite a good number of people, believe that that is why he was killed. He had to die because if he's still alive, he'll still come out and say majimbo. When USSR was falling down, you know, USSR was so many Soviet republics, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So each Soviet Socialist Republic was independent with its own government and with its own president. But the Union was more powerful than those others. But towards the end of the Union, the republics became so powerful that Gorbachev, who was the president of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, was too small for the Russian president, who was, I've forgotten his name. Now, until he even begged the Russian president that if the Russian president completes his term, then he could take over. So I'm trying to give you examples of where the provincial governments are so powerful that the national government is just figurehead. That is what Ronald Gideon Ngala wanted. And some years later, a few decades later, another father for devolution, the second generation devolution, was one Simon Nyachai. What happened was, if you look at today's devolution, if you look at the 2010 Constitution, it heavily borrows on both. How does Nyachai come in? When Nyachai was Chief Secretary, he came up with something that was called District Focus for Rural Development. It is this District Focus for Rural Development that the blueprint, those people who came up with the 2010 Constitution looked at it and borrowed heavily from that. If you look at the, you know, during Simon Nyachai's time, we had the provinces. He actually was also a provincial commissioner. But if you look at the District Focus for Rural Development, the provinces were just figurative. A lot of things were being decided both in Nairobi and in the districts. And it is in Nyachai's districts that came and formed up the counties. Back to Ronald Gideon Ngala. Ronald Gideon Ngala was for devolving of the function, most of it. And Jomo Kenyatta was not happy, or those who were in power were not happy. The other thing that Ronald Gideon Ngala was targeted, you know, we have this type of politics, which is there even today. If you are powerful nationally, and you have a political leader in an area, for lack of a better word, let me say, among a certain tribe, you find that so-and-so is the political head of that tribe. You may be in good terms with him, but still if there is any place that people don't trust each other, is in politics. So you groom an alternative person in that region so that mukikosana huyu, you can enter that region through the other person. When Jomo Kenyatta dismantled KADU, he went for the second tier of leadership. He went for Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Now, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi was junior to Ronald Ngala in KADU. But when both joined KANU, Daniel Arap Moi later ended, after 2 or so years, he later ended up as the vice president. And his senior, Ronald Gideon Ngala, was the minister for cooperative. Wenda waangalie maneno ya KICC na vyama vya ushirika. That is politics then, that is politics now. I don't know whether it will be politics in the future that way. That is how he was finished. Now, finally, we have to come to the day he died. He died on Christmas Day, 1972. And there was a lot of things that happened about his death that did not add up. They do not add up today, and they will never add up, except for an explanation that it was a political assassination. Majority of the people who have died due to political assassinations were from 2 tribes, Luo and Kikuyu. Although, hata sisi wa Bukusu, we have Masinde Mudro and we have Fred Simiyu Masinde, and other tribes have their own people. But the smaller the tribe, the harder it is. Gama Pinto was killed, and it was successful partly because how many Indians are there? Wacha Wahindi, how many Goans? So Ngala, Ronald Gideon Ngala was from the Mijikenda. He was a Mugiriama from Mijikenda tribe. It was a bit of a challenge. But if you see how JM's death, Robert Ouko, Tom Boya, somebody from a big tribe, it becomes a challenge to the system. Those days, we had landlines. And whenever Ronald Ngala wanted to visit his Kilifi home, he would take a landline, ring his wife, and tell her, I'm coming. This time, he did not call her. It was a festive moment, and they were usually ministers in Nairobi, they were used to meet with the president, but then suddenly, instead of him having that holiday and meeting the president and doing that, he allegedly decided to board a vehicle and go home. Suddenly, he decided to go to Kilifi from Nairobi, and he forgot. I'm saying he forgot. You get it, eh? He forgot to ring his wife and tell her, I'm coming. And his normal driver was not informed that the minister was going home. Another driver came up from nowhere. Some even say he didn't work in that ministry. Just a driver came, they boarded a vehicle. There was nobody else in the vehicle. You see, I want you to imagine a vehicle has, those days, it's not like today. Nowadays, even an MCA unamkuta ako na bodyguard wawili watatu. Here was a full minister and he used to walk around without a bodyguard. Now, this is how the vehicle was. The driver was alone huko mbele. At the back was the minister, but the minister was seated somewhere in between the 2 seats. because he was reading a newspaper. Whenever he traveled, he used to sit in that position and read the newspapers from there. They traveled and reached Makindu. When they reached Makindu, a swarm of bees entered the vehicle. The swarm of bees did not attack the driver. The swarm of bees attacked Ronald Gideon Ngala. But the driver who was driving it, wacha niache hapo kidogo. Anybody with my level of education, because yangu sijasoma sana, you'll know that a vehicle that is traveling on a highway, when you meet a swarm of bees, the wind inazisukuma left and right, pushes them aside. And then when you drive past, you create a vacuum. Then hizi bees zinafanya nini? Zinarudi zinagongana. And if they decide to follow you, by then umeenda mbali sana. You are not near. But then these bees, they were so fast that zilifuata hii gari, zikaingilia kwa dirisha, and they attacked the minister. Now, if you attack minister and the driver is safe, so the driver and the drive bio anaenda hospitali. But then the driver lost control and the vehicle fell into the ditch. The driver came out of the vehicle and scattered, and the minister came out and he died. The minute I've kept quiet is not a minute for honoring him, so I'm trying to reason. Is it possible that even this driver who was shown to the press was not even the one driving that vehicle? They killed him, whatever, because the fellow was so smart. He was, unajua ukianguka na gari kuna uchafu, kuna kukatwa na whatever. But he seemed as if he's somebody who has just come from the transport office and is the one who claimed to have been with Ronald Ngala. That is one of the political assassinations that I was unable to conclusively find a reasonable. But I've told you all the conclusions that have come, that this person was killed, and he was killed by the system. Because if he was killed by anybody else, that person would have been gone to jail. Thank you.